Jai Baba. I am Dr. H.P. Bharucha speaking to you from Navsari on the 15th of May 1991. I am going to give a talk on God Speaks. Avatar Meher Baba has given only 2 books to the world. One is God Speaks and the other is the Discourses. The 3rd book was written by Baba in 1925 after he began his silence, but it has not yet been published. God Speaks came to India for the first time in 1956. Today, my talk will include not only God Speaks, but also other books like The Everything and the Nothing and the Everything, Beams, What Am I Doing Here, and other books. The idea is to make the subject matter more simplified and acceptable. For convenience, I am dividing God Speaks into 6 chapters. We begin with chapter 1, the initial urge and the evolutionary process. At the beginning of God Speaks, Baba says that all souls are one, and they are all contained in the Oversoul, that is the Paramatma. Some souls are gross conscious, some are subtle conscious, and some are mental conscious. The difference between the souls is in their difference of consciousness and the difference of their sanskaras. Those that are gross conscious are not conscious of the subtle and the mental. Those who are conscious of the subtle are not conscious of the gross and the mental. And those who are conscious of the mental are not conscious of the gross and the subtle. Now, before this creation came into being, only God existed. And that state we call as God in the beyond state, or the Parabrahma Paramatma state, or the Dadar Ahauramazda state, or the Vara ul Vara state. This is a state where only God is. Meher Baba says that this state cannot be understood with our finite mind, because in this state there is consciousness and unconsciousness, knowledge and ignorance, the everything and the nothing. Neither is it Nirgun Nirakar or Sagun Sakar. So, it is just a tranquil state of the God is state, which our mind cannot fathom. Now, in this tranquil state of God, there occurred a whim. A whim is a whim. Why is it a whim? There is no reason for a whim. It's just a whim. And the whim was, who am I? And this whim occurred from a point called the Om point or the creation point. Now, as soon as this whim occurred in the beyond state, God naturally descended into another state called God in the beyond state, or the Paramatma, Parabrahma Paramatma state. Allah, or Yazdan, or Father. So, this is the Parabrahma Paramatma state. Now, there were no sanskaras and there was no consciousness in the beyond state. But, as soon as this whim occurred, and God wanted to know who I am, the first sanskara was created, and that was that it was the finite gross counterpart of the infinite. Now, as soon as the first sanskara is formed, a little consciousness is gained, and this consciousness makes the soul feel different from the oversoul. It makes it feel that it is finite instead of the infinite. In order to experience this first sanskara, a medium is required by the soul. Now, God Speaks only says that the first medium were the gases, but I'm going to give you some more details from other books. Now we can say this is the descent of God. So, the descent takes through 7 stages. And the descent is first through the mental world and then through the subtle world. So, from the beyond state, we come down to the beyond state, and from the beyond state, the descent is up to the stone form, but it passes through 7 stages. Now, what are these different stages? These are not mentioned in God Speaks. The mental world and the subtle world. The first sanskara makes it experience, makes the soul experience the first medium, and the first medium is the fires of the mental world, or what we call the stage of the 6th plane. The 6th plane is also called the Brahmalok. Now these are different fires and different stage which the soul experiences, and as it experiences these, it gains more sanskaras, and as more sanskaras are being formed, the consciousness is more developed. Then, from the 6th plane, it descends to the 5th plane, which is called the Shivloka. This is all the mental world. Now, the descent from the 6th to the 5th plane takes 700,000 years. That is 7 lakhs of years. New sanskaras are gained, new consciousnesses are gained, and the soul descends further into the subtle world. The subtle world has got 4 planes, and it contains 276 gases, and these gases are not like the ordinary gases of the gross world. Out of these 276 gases, there are 7 major gases, having 7 colors. Now, these gases are very different from the gases of our world, the gross world, and the colors are also very, very different. The intensity of the colors of the subtle world are much, much more than of the gross world. Baba gives you an example. Then, the sun's rays are yellow in color, but this yellow of the gross world is the 277th shadow of the yellow color of the subtle world. Do you know what this means? That the yellow color of the subtle world, if it throws one shadow, then that is the first shadow. If this shadow again throws another shadow, and so on, until the 277th shadow. So, the brilliance of the sun's light and the yellow color of the sun's light is the 277th shadow of the intensity of the light of the subtle world. So now we have seen that in the subtle world there are 276 gases. Of 7 of these, the 7 are the major gases, and out of 7 different colors. Now, the passage through the subtle world also takes another 700,000 years, that is 7 lakhs of years. Now, who is passing through the mental world and the subtle world? Supposing we compare, or we imagine the beyond state as a big infinite ocean, and all the drops are contained in that infinite ocean. These drops are descending from that state, and these drops, they take upon themselves different shapes and forms like bubbles. So the bubbles will look different from each other, and therefore that soul, which is the drop soul, now falsely feels that it is the bubble and not the oversoul itself. So, who is passing through the mental world and the subtle world? It is these drop souls or the jivatmas. Now they are passing through all these stages, and the subtle world, the last 3 gases are very similar to the gases of the gross world, but yet they are much, much finer than our gases. The first gas of the gross world that was created was the hydrogen gas. Now, before the gas was created, the proton was created, then the electron, and then the atom. So, an atom is formed of millions of sanskaras. Meher Baba says that 10 millions of sanskaras form one atom. So all through the descent, millions of sanskaras were being gained by that drop soul, and finally 10 million sanskaras form one atom, and 10 million atoms form one particle of dust. But before the dust is formed, from the gases we come to the semi-liquid state, the liquid state, the semi-solid state, and then finally the solid state or the stone state. Now, these are the final stages through which the drop soul passes. We have learned in the Hindu scriptures that there are 5 elements, or the 5 tattvas. Now what are these 5 tattvas? This is not given in God Speaks. But the first one was fire. And this requires, or this gives rise to energy, which is called pran. And this pran needs space, or akash. So that is the third element. Now the gases of the subtle world are vayu. So that's the fourth element. And then water, and finally the earth. So fire, energy, space, vayu, or the gases, water, and then finally earth. Before the stone form is gained by the drop soul, it passes through the semi-solid state, and Baba says that mercury can be counted as one of the semi-solid states. It's neither liquid, it's neither solid. Now as it is passing through all these stages, it gains more and more sanskaras. With it, the consciousness is more and more developed, and finally we come to the stone form. The soul, which is really the oversoul, now, because of the sanskaras, feels that it is the stone. The consciousness is so much linked with the stone form or the medium that it makes the drop soul feel that it is the medium and not the oversoul. Now, the first gross form is the stone form. We feel that the stone has no life, but this is already mentioned in one of Baba's books, that if you see a stone under ultraviolet light, it fluoresces. So there is some sort of a life in it, though we cannot see that life. So the first species of stone form is now formed. Who has formed this? It is the drop soul. The soul is nothing but Paramatma, but falsely feeling that it has now become the stone form. So, in that first stone form, again, the soul gains more and more sanskaras, more and more consciousness is developed, until finally in that first species of stone form, all the sanskaras that are possible to be gained have been gained, and the consciousness is fully developed in that stone form. And then, that drop soul leaves that first species of stone and stays for some time without a medium. But the sanskaras must be experienced, and so another form has to be taken. So the next species of stone is formed. Similarly, one after another species of stones, the drop soul passes through, gaining more and more sanskaras, gaining more and more consciousness. Now, one would feel, how could stones get sanskaras? But some stones are used in temples, so they get the sanskaras from the temples. Some stones will go to form a palace, and some stones will go to form a small hut. So these are the different sanskaras that the different stones will get from the different species of stones. When all the sanskaras are gained in all the species of stones, and these are 84 lakhs of species of stones. So you can imagine that millions of years through which the drop soul passes before it enters the next kingdom, which is the mineral kingdom. So in the last species of stone form, after all the sanskaras again and the consciousness is developed, that drop soul leaves that last species of stone and stays for some time with its consciousness without a medium. But since the sanskaras have to be experienced, the next kingdom that is the mineral kingdom, is formed. So there is a transition from the stone to the metal form. Now, this is very easy. We've learned that in chemistry, how the stone passes from stone to minerals. And we have seen several mines, the iron mines and the gold mines, and tons of stone are dug up from these mines and then processed, and only a little bit of metal is got from that. So it is a very, very slow process. Now Baba says, again in the metal form, 84 lakhs of species of metals there are, and the soul has to pass through all these species, gaining more and more sanskaras, gaining more and more consciousness, until finally all the species of minerals are over. So now the last medium of the metal form is dropped, and the drop soul remains for some time without a medium. But the sanskaras have to be experienced, and so it must take up another medium. And the next medium is the vegetable. Now, how can a metal become a vegetable? In one of Baba's books, it is mentioned that there are links between these different kingdoms. And the link between the metal and the vegetable is the coral. The coral, as you have seen, it grows underwater, and it is very, very hard. It's like a mineral, as hard as a mineral. And yet it is like a vegetable. It breathes. So the coral is the link between the mineral kingdom and the vegetable kingdom. So now the soul has taken up a new bubble, a new form, a new medium, which we call as a vegetable. And it passes through all the 84 lakhs of species of vegetables until finally all the vegetable forms are gone through. Now, after all the vegetable forms are gone through, the last species of vegetable is dropped, and the drop soul remains for some time without any medium. It has gained all the sanskaras in the vegetable kingdom. It has gained more and more consciousness, and now it is for some time that it stays without a medium. So, from the vegetable, it now goes on to the next kingdom, which is the insects and the worms. And Baba says, the grasshopper is the first insect. It is the link between the vegetable and the insects. As you have seen a grasshopper when it's sitting on top of a tree on a leaf, it's so green that it's very difficult to differentiate it from the leaf itself. So, now the drop soul is passing through the different insects and worms, and the snake is the last worm. From the insect kingdom, it will now pass on to fishes. So after the last snake form is dropped, the drop soul stays for some time without a medium, and then, since the sanskaras have to be experienced, it takes up the next kingdom, the first species of the next kingdom, which is the fish. As you know, the snake is very much linked to the fish. The snake can even swim in water, it can stay on the land also. So the snake becomes the link between the insects and the worms and the reptiles and the birds and the fish. So now the drop soul passes through the different fishes, and of the different species, Baba says, there are again 84 lakhs of species of fish. Similarly, it passes off to the birds. Now, the waterfowl is the first bird to be formed. It is a link between the fishes and the birds. The waterfowl can stay on the water, it can stay on the land. So the waterfowl is the link. And the last bird is, the Baba has not named it, but it said that it has a long beak and has a piece of flesh lolling from or hanging down from the beak, but no name has been given to it. And the bird just before this last bird is called the cock. So, the drop soul now passes from the fishes to the birds gains more and more sanskaras, gains more and more consciousness, and finally the last bird form is dropped. And now it waits without a medium. But since the sanskaras have to be experienced, it has to take up another medium, and that is the animal kingdom. And the first animal to be formed is the kangaroo. Again in the animal kingdom, 84 lakhs of species of animals are there, and the drop soul gains more and more consciousness, more and more sanskaras, until finally the last three animals are the horse, the dog, and the monkey. Now since these are the last three forms in the animal kingdom, they are very close to the human beings. And you see that the human beings are very fond of horses, dogs, and monkeys. And the last monkey is the ape. And after the ape form is dropped, the drop soul remains for some time without any medium. But since all the sanskaras that it has gained have to be experienced through another medium, therefore the first human being is formed. So, the first human being is nothing but the accumulated sanskaras of the last species of animal form, that is the ape. So the first human being is formed. Now, this is the end of the first chapter, but there is something which I would like to draw your attention in, and that is, Baba has always said that one can kill flies, mosquitoes, and snakes, because it quickens their process of going up. But one should never kill ants, bees, and lizards. No explanation has been given by Baba for this. Now, as soon as the first human being is formed, the consciousness is fully developed. There is no scope for further development, and therefore no new medium is required. New mediums were required in order that the consciousness should develop. But now, since the consciousness is 100% developed in the first human being, no more species or no more mediums are required higher than the human form. This is the end of the first chapter. Now we come to the second chapter. It's called the reincarnation process. Before we come to the reincarnation process, I must tell you something about the subtle body and the mental body. As this drop soul is passing through from the stone to the vegetable to birds to animals and all through these different kingdoms, it is also developing a subtle body and a mental body. Now, the subtle body is seen in the vegetables. Scientists have now found out that if you go near a leaf or near a tree, it moves, but it moves so microscopically that it is not possible to see with our gross eyes, and therefore we feel that it has not moved. But you know that there are certain plants that completely close when a human being goes near it. So this self-preservation in the vegetable kingdom is the beginning of the subtle body. Now, in the worms and birds and fishes, the mental body is already developed, but it is in the form of an instinct. If you go near an insect, it will fly away. You go near a fish or you throw a stone, the fish will run away. So this is not because it has a mind, but the mental body is being developed, and this is called the instinct. Besides this, when one kingdom is left, like the stone kingdom is left and the mineral kingdom, or the mineral kingdom is left and the vegetable kingdom, that gap in between the two different kingdoms, it is the subtle body which is giving the soul the energy to retain itself and take up the next form of the first species of the next kingdom. So, this gap in between the two different kingdoms or between two different species, that is where the subtle body helps the drop soul. And the sanskaras which are stocked in the mental body, they are also retained there. So it is the subtle body and the mental body, both that help the transition from one species to another and from one kingdom to another. Now, in man, the instinct becomes what is called the intellect. In the human body, the subtle body is fully developed, the mental body is fully developed, and so there is no other scope for its development. When all the sanskaras of the last animal form are experienced by the first human being, then that first human being dies or drops its body. So the first human being is nothing but the accumulation of the sanskaras of the last animal form. And when all the experiences of the last animal form are experienced in the first human body, then that body is dropped. But as it is experiencing the sanskaras of the last animal form, it is also creating new sanskaras, and therefore it has to take up another body. So it has to retain the subtle body, the mental body, for some time without a physical body. And then it takes up the next human body. So this is what we call as the birth and the death of the body. So birth and death, according to God speaks, are nothing but due to our sanskaras. The accumulated sanskaras of the past species give rise to birth of the first human being. Then the accumulated sanskaras of that first species or the first human being give rise to the next human form. So the human form is nothing but the accumulation of sanskaras. And therefore birth is nothing but passing on of the drop soul from one body to another, accumulating more and more sanskaras, and of course the consciousness is fully developed. So birth and death are related to sanskaras and nothing more than that. And yet when there is the birth of a child in our family, everybody feels so elated. Actually there is no need to get elated, because it's only a drop soul which has taken up another form to experience the sanskaras of the last form. And death also is not the real death, but it's only a temporary phase, and that drop soul has to come back again to take another form. So, now we have seen that in the human body, there are the gross body, the subtle body, and the mental body. But besides these three bodies, there is another body which is not mentioned in God Speaks, but in other books, and that is the astral body. Now what is the astral body? Baba gives you an example of an egg. The eggshell is the gross body. For example, the gross body is the eggshell. Then the yellow and the white in the egg are the subtle and the mental bodies. Then where is the astral body? If you half boil an egg and break open the shell, a very thin membrane is seen in the egg, and that is the astral body or the astral sheath. So this astral sheath or astral body is connected to the subtle body by what is called a silver cord. Now, as soon as a person dies, what happens is that this silver cord breaks and the astral body is shed. So the drop soul goes with the subtle body, the mental body, the sanskaras, and the consciousness. All together go forward. But the astral body or the astral sheath is dropped. And where does it go? After death, Baba says that there is an astral world. This astral world is situated between the gross world and the subtle world. So, that soul stays in the astral world for 40 to 72 hours, and during that time, it sees all its actions that it has done during the last birth or during the last life. And after it has reviewed all its actions, then it goes into the hell or the heaven state, depending on the sanskaras. If there are an excess of good sanskaras, it goes to heaven state. If there are an excess of bad sanskaras, it goes to the hell state. So, after death, the drop soul goes into the astral world for 40 to 72 hours, and then into the hell or the heaven state. The Christians believe that the hell is down below and heaven is far up in the heavens above, but that is all false. Baba has said specifically that hell and heaven are not places, but they are states of experience of the disincarnate soul. At the time of death, supposing your good sanskaras are 100 and your bad sanskaras are 50, then after you have stayed in the astral world for about 40 to 72 hours, then because your good sanskaras are in excess, you will go into the heaven state. That is, you will experience joy for some time. How long will you experience this heaven state? Until the good and the bad sanskaras are almost balanced. That is, if the good sanskaras at death are 100 and the bad sanskaras are 50, then when it is almost 50-51, immediately you will take up another birth in order to experience these 50 and 51 sanskaras. So now you can see that hell and heaven are nothing but experiences of the disincarnate soul. If you have more bad sanskaras, you experience the hell state. If you have more good sanskaras, you experience the heaven state. Now, where heaven and hell are, I will explain to you when I come to the planes. This is not the right time to explain that. So, Baba says at the time of death, the astral sheath breaks off from the subtle body. The gross body drops off here. It's immaterial whether you bury that gross body or some burn it or somebody expose it to the animals or to the sunlight. It's immaterial what happens to the gross body. Because the soul has left, the subtle body, the mental body, the sanskaras and the consciousness, all of these have left that gross body, so it's immaterial what you do with that gross body. Now, the mind, even after it has left the gross body, it has a connection with that body for about 5 days. And that is why the Parsis, on the 4th day after death, they have a ceremony called the Charam ceremony, where a special prayer is offered so that the mind, which is still or maybe still linked to the gross body, separates from there and it goes away to the astral world. So remember, when somebody dies in the family, Baba says that if you pray, then it helps that soul to dissociate itself from the gross body, and its passage to the astral world becomes very simple and simplified. But if you cry and beat your chest and all sorts of things that we have seen in the world, then that dropped soul finds it extremely difficult to leave the gross body and go away to the astral world. So actually by our crying, we are not allowing that dropped soul to go to the astral world, and we are giving it more suffering by our crying. And Baba says that all our crying is mainly because of our selfishness. A mother will cry when the son dies. It's not because she has lost her son, but it's because of a selfish motive, that she will think, who is going to earn for me and what will I eat now? That is a selfish motive behind it. It's not love that makes you cry, it's your selfishness that makes you cry. So, at the time of death and after death, please don't cry, because it does not help, but on the contrary, it obstructs the dissociation of the drop soul from the body. So the mental world or the mental body has connection with the gross body for about 5 days, and to a lesser extent for the 12 days. After the 12th day, the mental body definitely dissociates from the gross body. And that is why the Hindus have the ceremony on the 12th day. So the idea of these ceremonies is to help the dissociation of the soul, of the drop soul from the gross body. Now, this is what exactly happens. What I've told you is that what happens when an ordinary person dies. He goes to the astral world, he sees the whole film of his life, and then goes into the hell or the heaven state, and then comes back again into a new body. But there are certain abnormal types of deaths. There are different types of deaths. The normal one, I've told you, that a man becomes old and he goes and dies, and that's the end of it, and then he goes to the astral and then hell or heaven. But there are abnormal deaths. Supposing a person is murdered, supposing there has been an accident and the person dies, then Baba says that the astral sheath does not break off, and so that dropped soul remains in the astral world for a longer time, retaining its astral sheath, and it becomes a ghost. And this ghost will come back or try to come back into this gross world in order to take revenge. So, these abnormal deaths will cause that drop soul to become a ghost. Now, there are certain people who commit suicides. Now, suicides is also very, very bad. And there are different types of suicides Baba has differentiated. The lowest type of suicide is one who is completely frustrated with the life, and therefore he kills himself, and he too becomes a ghost. There are other types of suicides where a person may be suffering from cancer and he cannot bear the suffering. He takes some sleeping tablets and dies. Or a man is very, very poor, and that poverty makes him commit suicide. All of these people will also not become ghosts, but they will have to suffer in the hell state. So anyone who commits suicide will have to go into the hell state. Now, there are certain types of suicides which are called higher types of suicides or deaths. And these are when a person goes on a hunger strike. Supposing a person goes on a hunger strike for some good cause, for the betterment of the world, for the betterment of the community, for the betterment of their town. And if he dies during that hunger strike, then he will go not to the hell state, but he will go to the heaven state. Now, still higher than this are rare cases where a person kills himself in order to get God realization. But remember, Baba says, it is impossible. A man might kill himself in order to get God realization. The intensity of his love for God may be so great that he wants to get God realization. But just before death, if he thinks of anything else, he'll have to go into the hell state. So, it is extremely rare for a person who commits suicide only for God. If he commits only for God, then of course well and good, he'll get mukti. But if there is a single thought before he dies, any other thought, then he goes to the hell state. If you remember, Mahatma Gandhi was shot, dead. I shouldn't say this over here, but after he was shot also, he said, "May God forgive you." And then he said, "Hey Ram," and then he died. Now, if he died exactly at the time when he said, "Hey Ram," then he would get liberation. But before he died, and after he said, "Hey Ram," different thoughts came into his mind, and therefore he could not get liberation. Now, there is another type of death, what is called the supernatural type of death. Certain yogis give up their bodies at will. You've heard of Gnaneshwar Maharaj. Saint Gnaneshwar, he went into living samadhi. So these and other yogis can give up their bodies whenever they want to give up. So these are very high types of supernatural types of deaths. So we have seen the different types of deaths, where the normal death, then the people who commit suicides, the lowest type have to become ghosts, then the lower type of suicides who have to go into the hell state, then the higher type of deaths like the hunger strikes, they go to the heaven state, and still higher who do it for God only, they will get liberation, but that is very, very rare. So now we have seen that the different types of births and different types of deaths, and what happens after death, that in the hell or the heaven state, when the experiences are practically all equal, or the sanskars have practically become equal, that drop soul again comes back into another body, and that we call as birth. So, we have a number of births and deaths, but then the Christians and the Zoroastrians, they believe that their prophet said that there is only one birth, and there is only one death. An avatar can never say something wrong. So then, how do we explain this? I've already told you that the first human body is dropped, and then he comes back, and then he drops that, and he takes the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, and in short, he has to pass again through 84 lakhs of births and deaths. So, how could Christ say that there is only one birth, and there is only one death? When Christ and Zoroaster said that there is only one birth and one death, he meant something quite different. He meant in relation to the sanskaras. when the drop soul takes upon itself the first form of gases, and then it passes through the stone, metal, vegetable, insects, etc., all these, and becomes human being, and then finally when that human being gets God realization on the seventh plane, then that is the end of his first journey. So when Christ said there is only one birth, it means the birth of that drop soul as the first gas, and then passing through all these smaller deaths and births through the different animal kingdoms and through the different kingdoms, and then finally in the human beings also, all these small births and deaths in that huge life, right from the beginning when the drop soul became a gas, right up till the time it comes on the seventh plane and merges into God, that is one big life in relation to the sanskaras. And that is what Christ said, there is only one birth when the drop soul takes the birth of a first gas, and there is only one death means when it comes on the seventh plane and merges into God. So all these small births and deaths which we experience during our lifetime and the lifetime of other people is nothing but milestones in this huge life right from the gas till the time that he merges into God on the seventh plane. This is the end of the second chapter. Only one point I would like to say over here is that every time the human being is born, it has to experience the sanskaras of the last birth. And because it wants to experience and utilize those, it experiences exactly the opposite type of sanskaras in this life, so as to neutralize those of the past. So, in order to unburden the sanskaras of the past birth, one has to pass through experiences, the opposite type of experiences. Once he may be a male, then the next time he'll be a female. Once he might be born in America, then he'll be born in India or Africa or anywhere else. So these are the opposites through which he has to pass in order to break the sanskaras. So this is the end of the second chapter. This is chapter 3, the planes and the involution process.